You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's see the headlines now this morning, what the newspapers are saying. And we'll begin with the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint says, Atiku, Ayu, mark others on Osun Goba. Adeleke's victory over Oyetola referendum on 2023. That's what they have said. You see that on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. This Day newspaper says, Buhari, Osun people have expressed their will through the ballot. It must matter and be respected. That is what This Day has there. Nigerian Tribune is the next one now. It says, winners, losers, as Adeleke's victory returns Osun to PDP. That's what the Nigerian Tribune has said. Daily Trust, how infighting caused APC's defeat in Osun. That's what Daily Trust has. Daily Trust. Okay. How infighting caused APC's defeat in Osun. All right. From there, let's go to the Nation newspaper. Adeleke, PDP celebrate as Oyetola studies results. Adeleke, PDP celebrate as Oyetola studies results. That's what the Nation newspaper has. Right. News Direct says that's why Oyetola, PDP, lost Osun governorship election. Investigations are coming out now from various reports in there. That's what News Direct has, why Oyetola, PDP, lost Osun governorship election. All right. I think Kemi has the rest of the stories.
Yes, Mike, and then there are also more reactions from other papers I have here. We'll look at this Nigerian now, still on the Osun governorship election. It's positing now reasons on how and why Adeleke knocked out Oyetola. Of course, Adeleke is dancing to power, it says, this Nigeria. The Daily Times is next, still on the Osun gubernatorial poll, how Adeleke floored Oyetola. First News now, why Governor Oyetola lost to Adeleke. Of course, these papers, when you read them, bring out more and more reasons as to the turnout of Saturday's election. Now time to look at some of the business-oriented papers. Business AM says inflation exposes Buhari's failings as news tightens on households. The Guardian, more worries over rising inflation headwinds as MPC, that's the Monetary Policy Committee, meets today in Abuja. For Business Day, it's reporting on how Bureau de Change aid bank fraud in Nigeria. That's Business Day. And before I get to the last paper with me, National Economy is reporting on the state of the Lagos port, saying imported vehicles trapped over suspension of terminal operator. Finally, with me is the Abuja Inquirer on the 29 billion naira ground rent, saying Maitama Asokoro landlords top FCTA debtors list. That's it for me, Mike.
Okay. Let's go to the international scene, and Saudi Arabia is where we get to hear. Saudi Gazette says that every country has its own different values that must be respected. Crown Prince is saying this to Biden. And recall that the United States president, has been in Saudi Arabia, and they met, and the topic of the death of or the killing of Jamal Khashoggi dominated part of the meeting they had. And at the end of the day, the president said he wasn't, the president couldn't secure most of the deals that he would have secured in Saudi Arabia. But that's the fallout of it. The Guardian newspaper from the UK says, red alert, ferocious heat wave set to send temperatures beyond 40 degrees centigrade. Of course, climate change is still very, very strong out there and visible. Okay? All right, now, gentlemen of the press, the stories on the front page of most of the newspapers this morning talk about the outcome of the Osun governorship election. And there are several reasons given out there regarding how or why the incumbent lost the election. But on the other hand, one of them was the how INEC stood its ground. INEC was very clean and straight. Everything, from the INEC's perspective, from what some analysts have said, that INEC has to be commended in the conduct of the Osun election.
Indeed, by and large, INEC, from what observers have said, and the array of journalists who covered the event, of course, we saw the power of social media at play again, and more people getting even more interested in the process, not just casting their ballot and going on home. We saw more and more Nigerians staying put to monitor the process. So consciousness is heightening, and so INEC understandably sees that people will be monitoring its conduct, not just during the polling activity, but even beyond. So, of course, the pressure was on them, and from what we saw from the perspectives of many observers on the ground, they also gave themselves a good showing. Of course, voter inducement was also at play now, but by and large, we still saw the will of the people. INEC, back to the issue of INEC, of course, the beavers, we saw the beavers also working. There were some hitches. People said they were there before INEC came, and then the stipulation that you transfer the result to the system. We understand that there were even some instances that INEC officials, ad hoc and all on the ground, were not even willing to transfer the votes, now the results, onto their system, so as to not to allow for any hanky-panky on anyone's side. Technology at play, it also gives you a sense that we really need more and more investment in the use of technology during elections, off-season, on-season. We see how much of this electoral malpractices will be minimized if we use technology more and more.
Well, it rained on Saturday morning, but it didn't deter the people regarding how resolute they were to come out to express themselves and ensure that their votes counted.
Yeah. It's just good to recommend INEC for its role. So far, it has been doing well from election to election. But must bear in mind that we're still looking at local off-year elections. This real test will come next year when you have to handle the whole country as one bunch. And that is where you see how beavers will play and all of that. But we have to commend the INEC that from election to election, it has showed its capacity to handle elections, to make sure that things cannot go bad. The violence in elections tend to be reduced these days because you cannot snatch ballot boxes. Because you snatch it, you can't count it.
Exactly.
So everything is now...
it becomes invalid. In fact, the moment you tamper with it, the moment you tamper with it, it's invalid. It's gone.
So what was the purpose eventually?
So that's one of the reasons why violence is tapped down. But Nigerians will always come up with ideas about how to circumvent the system, but never underestimate the flexibility of the Nigerian cunning. So you have to take that into consideration. But the whole issue is that, as I said earlier, that from time to time, people will start crystallizing the reasons why the elections took the turn it took. I talked about divisions in the party, and there have been states where divisions, or parties where you had divisions, and it did not matter. So sometimes this issue of division in the party can be exaggerated. But the most thing is that the person on the ballot is usually the person who will be held responsible for how it turns out. And it's a referendum on the person on the ballot, as I said earlier, that the election was a referendum on the governor. I think it is less a referendum on Adeleke and more on the governor, because I think that what feelers from the field are saying is that they feel that the governor might have done well in terms of being an administrator, but not being a politician. And the lesson here is that you have to always connect as a politician. You should build a house, but also don't give your children over to the nanny. So that is what it is. That is what it is. That was I think happened. And if you give over the children to the nanny, the child will vote for the nanny over the parents. Because
when elections come,
nanny is thicker than blood. Because at that stage, the child doesn't know who puts the food in the mouth.
Exactly.
Who plays with me? Who plays with me?
Yeah.
When I cry, who is there? When I laugh, who is there?
Yeah.
Who is there to laugh with me? It's not that, I gave you a good school. I gave you a good road, and it is something. It is something. We need that, but we also need to connect. That's why they say that in politics, you have to play the politics of governance, and also play the politics of election. They are both different. And if you play the politics of governance, I think it is enough for the politics of election. You'll be surprised. It's not only in Nigeria; it's everywhere. When the World War ended in in the UK, this man was a hero. Winston Churchill was a hero, but the people said, "We don't want a warmonger anymore." It's just like the story of the Bible. When God said, "David, your hand is full of blood.
Yes.
You will not build the temple." So it also happened that the people said, no. Mr. Churchill, you're the greatest man of the 20th century, but we're not giving you the mandate. So they voted for somebody else. Clinton gave America the greatest economic expansion in history. But the people said, the election is not about that. It's about character. So they gave it to Bush. Even in Osun State, Baba Konde had one term. He was a very good administrator. But they turned it against him. He's going to have a second term. You have to play the politics of election. The politics of governance is good, but the politics of election is necessary for you to do governance.
Because that's the door. That is the door in the first instance.
That's the door.
I even think it's for me, I think it's even the former, because, election will be like Sam said, a referendum of, especially if you are the incumbents, now be a referendum of your past 4 years. So I think there's a need to build relationships. There's a need to connect. You use that word, and I think it also fits in beautifully into what we're talking about here. But then I still want to, disagree with Sam because infighting, from my own perspective, I think it would depend on the caliber of personalities involved. If in this emergence now of the victory given to the PDP, now they won the election. But if you look at the caliber of the persons set to have been, at odds with the party, former Governor Adeleke Knocked Out Oyetola, this is a former governor, this is a sitting minister. Before then he had already served out 2 terms, and there was a mega rally in the party. He was, obviously absent. The election too came, and then we saw that he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't in the country, if we go by reports and all that. It also brings it down now to the party. What did the party do to reconcile, all this, divided personalities? What did the president do as leader of the party? What did the party in Osun State do? What did the sitting governor do now to make sure that, because we saw how the emergence of him as the winner of the primary election, we saw how that also created more rancor. So how did the party, find a way to cement all this division so that it will come out as a united party for the election? It remains to be seen. We don't, of course, the result is out there.
All right. So you feel
that could be a factor. I didn't rule that out, but we don't know to what extent. But what I'm saying is that it's not always definitive.
Absolutely.
Look at Edo.
Absolutely.
Oshomole was a big factor in Edo. Was also like the case of Adeleke Knocked Out Oyetola. fighting the incumbent.
True.
But the incumbent prevailed.
Yes.
Baseki prevailed. Unlike Oyetola did not prevail.
He didn't.
So because it has to be your strength. You say the novelist Conrad in his book Heart of Darkness, he wrote that our strengths are accidents arising from the weaknesses of others.
Right.
So how weak was the opponent? That's the most important.
That's okay.